It works. We used to have too much technology in the old days. We don't have much now, right? أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين على أعدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. صلوات. Moment before I delve into the translation of this ayah that I have chosen for tonight's topic, I'd like to thank the organizers for the kind invitation. It's really good to be back in Edmonton after many, many years. I can remember the difficulties of every brick that was being put up here with the past leaders of our community, in particular Marhum Roshan Bhai Devji, if we remember him amongst others. So it's a good feeling to be back here after so many years. And I hope to meet every one of you, the old and the new faces. When I say old, not age-wise, but the old faces and the new faces that inshallah I will meet in the 10 days. The idea here is to provoke some thought. Muharram is a very emotive period for us, and so it should be. A Shia, wherever he may be, will find time to come to the Muharram Majlis, if not during the rest of the year. It is that pull of Aba Abdullah, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, that brings us here. And if that emotion wasn't there, if we did not have the emotional connection, this would not happen, not just here. Mu'mineen, the Azah started yesterday. The 1st of Muharram, the moon was sighted yesterday. The Azah began yesterday. That Azah may have begun in New Zealand, for example, and after that, every hour after that, it's non-stop until it has reached Edmonton. Somewhere in the world there is that 1 hour or more that is being used to remember Imam Hussain alayhi salam. That is the power of Aba Abdullah salawat. So, Mu'mineen, we are part of a global movement that continues to reverberate almost 1400 years later. And that zeal and the passion continues to increase. The Arba'in Najaf to Karbala walk, for example, is a case in point to see the movement and the attachment to Karbala. But we would be shortchanging Imam Hussain alayhi salam if we were not to become better Muslims than we were last Muharram. Each Muharram, if we are to enable ourselves to become better Muslims, to become better human beings, to be the upholders of social justice, to be the upholders of standing up for the right, and to follow what we call hukukullah, the rights of Allah upon us. Each year, if that zeal continues to increase also, then we have truly paid respect to Imam Hussain alayhi salam salawat. So, Mu'mineen, the ayah that I began with, roughly translated, it says that help one another in goodness and in piety, in birr and in taqwa. Do not help or support one another in ism and udwan, meaning sin and aggression, and be careful of your duty to Allah. Surely He is severe in requiting evil. This is a mission statement of a Muslim and a Muslim community. This is the message that is encompassed in Karbala, to say, support those who are on the path of birr and taqwa, and do not support those who are in the path of sin and aggression, ism and udwan. We can see that there were two camps in Karbala. There was the camp of birr, there was the camp of taqwa, and on the other hand, there was the camp of sin and aggression, of ism and udwan. We need to now analyze ourselves. We cannot be judgmental on other people. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a beautiful faculty of nafs al-lawama, the self-blaming soul, where we can be our own judges. Are we in the camp of Hussein, or are we in the camp of Yazid and crying upon Hussein? That is a transformation that is needed year after year as we continue on this journey of self-development. Today was the 1st of Muharram 1440. And the topic for this entire series is living purposefully. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجِعُونَ. Do you think that we created you in vain, without a purpose? Many times the Quran asks us to ponder, and that you would not return to us. So this means that we have has a purpose. And in order to fulfill that purpose, we must also try and live fully, with an intention, with an action, with an outcome. In the corporate North American world, you have documents like vision to reality. What is the objective? How are we going to get there? We have strategic plans to say, where are we at now? How are we going to get there? And where do we want to go? A moment also has, in the ayah that I previously recited, that there is a vision and a mission statement about our lives here and what Karbala can teach us. So inshallah, in the days to come, we will focus on life purpose, exploring lessons from Karbala. Now, sometimes it may be emotive. Most of the times it'll be some logical thinking, and I crave your attention. Many a times these podiums feel a little shy in terms of challenging thought. But we must challenge thought. We are the followers of Sahib Saluni. We are the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where every question that was asked of him, he responded, depending on who the person was, by a question to say, you answer the question. In one of the battles, Imam was asked that what do we see? We see Aisha and others on one side. We see you, Ya Ali, on the other side. The Battle of Jamal. Tell us, Ali, where does the truth lie? Because you are all with the Prophet. Where does the truth lie? Imam could have said that the truth lies with me. He had every right. He was the Bab of Madinatul Ilm. He did not say that. The answer that he gave in that, Taha Hussain, a great commentator of the Quran in Azhar, says some of the words and the answers of Imam were between the creation, the creatures and that of the divine, is in between. This is the beauty of Mawla's words. He said, and I quote, I'm paraphrasing, that you have got yourself in a very tangled argument. Do not establish truth by the personalities. Do not look at Ali and Aisha and others on different sides. Talha and Zubair on one side. Bibi Aisha on the other side. Imam Ali on one side. He said, do not look at the personalities. Imam said, first establish where the truth is. Understand what the truth is and then judge whether they are with the truth or Ali is with the truth. Mu'minin, this is the school. This is the intellectual school that we belong to. And therefore we must not be shy to critically examine our beliefs. To also ensure that, and particularly to my young friends, when you get an answer, think about the answer to the question. And if you have to pose another question to get an answer, do not feel shy. The idea is to try and do the best that you can to understand. Yes, approach it from the area of belief, not from an area of disbelief, but to say that I must understand. Inshallah, tomorrow we will talk more about the need for critical thinking. Today, we're looking at the life purpose that is being courageous in the face of hardship. This is what Karbala teaches us. Being true to yourself, daring to speak the truth, fighting against injustice, promoting compassion and understanding. These are the values. Caring for those in need. These are the values that we have that Karbala teaches us. And as we go through defining the purpose and a purposeful life, we will look at and let us judge ourselves against those values of Karbala to say, where do we stand? When it comes to standing up for the oppressed, social media is a great tool that we have to express ourselves. But then all we do, forgive me for saying this, is we become keyboard warriors. We will send out 500 WhatsApp messages about what's happening in Yemen, but did I lift a finger to do something practical so that those people in Yemen who are suffering can actually do something with my assistance? True, we must use every tool at our disposal to expose those tyrants around the world who in the name of Islam do what they do. But at the same time, whether it's locally or globally, one needs to do a little bit more than becoming a keyboard warrior. So the goal, in these days, inshallah, would be for all of us, and myself more than most, to be inspired to contribute to society. What have I done? What can I do in my small way, in my humble way? What do I do to give my life some level of passion and fulfillment? I wake up in the morning, I'm part of the rat race. Go to work, come back home, socialize with my family, friends, have dinner, watch the 90-inch, the Jamara that I call it, that's in the house, for about 2 hours with a 24-hour news cycle, and Trump keeping you guys busy. I don't know why Canadians are so busy with Trump, but that's another story. All the time, we're busy, busy, busy. The rat race starts in the morning again. Do I sit, ponder, just for a few seconds? What is the purpose of it all? It does not mean that we don't go out to earn our living or go to school, but we have to stop at some point and say, what is the purpose? How can I give my life a level of passion and fulfillment? Well, one way is to do something that is larger than yourself, something that is beyond your own needs, something that is out there that we can serve others, that we are of service to those who are in need. And through that, through the service of His creatures, we have a path to spiritual fulfillment. True, we can sit in a mosque and meditate, contemplate to get spiritual advancement. But there is another path also. And that path is a path of service to community and humanity. And that truly is something that we need to understand and learn. How do we do this? Inshallah, in the days to come, we will go through that, some of the examples. But we have two rights. One is a right of Allah upon us. This is called hukukullah, our ibadat. Everything that we do, the way we act, is hukukullah in terms of the prayers and the salat and the du'as and everything. All the rituals that we do must have a meaning to take us closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah has rights upon us. And what are His rights? What is the level of His rights? Imam alayhi Islam has said somewhere that obey Allah to the degree that you need Him. Obey Allah only to the degree that you need Him, no more. For every breath that I take, I cannot live if Allah did not give me the ability to breathe. So what is my neediness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Every breath of mine is that neediness, and my obedience must also be, as Imam has said, only obey Him to the degree that you need Him. This, and he also said, the next words after that were that disobey Allah to the degree that you have the strength to bear the fire of hell. 100 degrees, I talk in Fahrenheit, I think it's like 40 degrees in centigrade. And we start screaming. And when I used to live in California, we start screaming when it's 30 degrees to say it's very, very hot. If we cannot stand that, then what should we be doing in terms of disobedience? So these are the hukukullah. And then you have also espousing what you call hukukul ibad, the rights of the creatures of Allah upon us. The creatures have rights. And the Mufassirin have told us that this hukukul ibad is not just right of human beings upon us, the rights of creatures. The environment could also be included in this, to say, what am I doing as a human being in order to serve society, to become part and parcel of a society that I live in? This is hukukul ibad. So, to move on, just to give a brief precision, I don't see a watch here, so I need to be reminded of the time. Where is it? Okay. Power of intentional living is what we'll talk about today. The second lecture will be on the need for critical thinking, and then we'll talk about time. We'll talk about the value proposition of insan. What is the value of a human being? We will talk about living a purposeful life. We'll talk about how life is a journey, and the great faith that we have is a vehicle to cross over into where we need to go through that, on that journey. We will talk about the concept of the society of believers. And then we'll talk about religious harmony leading to peace for humanity, in terms of pluralism, in terms of having everybody else joining this. We cannot live in a cocoon. I'm a Shia, therefore I'll create my own society. No. I have to live with others. I have to interact with the rest of society. What can I do so that I am part of religious harmony, not religious strife in the rest of the world? And lastly, how can this message of Karbala transform us individually and collectively? Let me give a small piece of homework to my young friends over these few days so that we can get some results. Please go and research the difference between change and transformation. These are two different terms, sometimes used interchangeably. Change and transformation. You can go to Mullah Google and you'll get a lot of stuff on that. But change and transformation. And we will discuss that at some point. Well, let's have so my time starts now when the watch was on. Karbala Soundbites. We hear this, that Karbala teaches us the supreme level of Tawheed. When you look at those who were present in Karbala and you ponder on their understanding of Tawheed, on their cognizance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of their resignation and their submission, of their fortitude and their manliness. This is what Karbala was, of honor and dignity, mu'mineen, and then of love and a quest for freedom, of a concern for mankind, of a passion to serve humanity. This is unique and without a parallel. If we study analytically the history of Karbala, we will see those values and more. The idea is, how are we applying, understanding, putting these values into our life in terms of transformation? And that is why the word transformation becomes very important. Well, Control Alt Delete, this is the time, every year. We begin to reset the system. We've gone through the year, did what we could, and we pray that Allah accepts our ibadat during the year. And we also pray earnestly that He forgives our sins and things that we have done that we should not have done. That on the 1st of Muharram today, we give that promise to Abu Abdullah to say that we will not repeat that. I will become a better Muslim and a better human being because my system became unstable. This is my Control Alt Delete. I am resetting my system. Am I a better human being than I was last Muharram? Will I be a better Muslim, a better human being next Muharram when I sit on the same Fashiaza? Is a question no one else can answer except you yourself. And this truly is a journey that we will share together in these 10 days to say how can we perhaps begin to do this. So I come to the first lecture with that long preamble. I promise you there won't be more preambles. We'll go straight into the subject matter from tomorrow onwards. But I wanted to set the scene as to where we need to go. This will be a formal presentation. It may be a little different from the majalises that you may be used to. I apologize for that. But this is one way of conveying the message of Abdullah. And this is one effective way that I have found over the last many years to actually share my thoughts in the way that I do. Some of you may find the presentations, they say a little dry, but please bear with me. There's a lot of thought that goes into producing something like this so that we can all benefit. I didn't write that on my slide. The power of intentional living. So what is the power of intentional living? Because everything begins here. The journey begins here. A journey begins with an intention. There is a Chinese proverb which says a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. I beg to disagree. The journey of 1,000 miles cannot begin because the first step cannot be taken unless you have the intention of taking that first step. And therefore the journey begins at the time of Niyyah. And Niyyah is central to our practice. Prayers are not valid without you making a conscious intention that I will be praying 3 rakats of Maghrib, for example, or that I will be fasting. The Niyyah is something that is central. That is where it begins. And therefore our lives must also be on the basis that this is intentional living. It is not something that I am going into something without having made an intention. It is a human being's fitrah. Niyyah implies that you are conscious of your action. You cannot just go through life meandering. You must be conscious of what you're going to do, that your life also needs to be lived intentionally and purposefully. Now, a purpose cannot come unless you have a mental intention to do something. And Niyyah is something that truly elevates an act. I'll give you an example. 3 men were working on a building site. One of them was asked, doing exactly the same kind of work. They were making bricks to build a building. Exactly the same kind of work. So one of them said, I'm making bricks. The second one was asked, what are you doing? He said, I'm earning a living. Can you see the difference between one man's intention as to how he saw himself as a brick maker? The other one saw himself as a provider for his family. By merely his intention of becoming from a brick maker to somebody who is providing for his family, he converted that act of making bricks into an act of ibadah, because to earn a halal living for your family is part and parcel of worship. The third man was asked, what are you doing? And he said, I am building a mosque. I am building a mosque. He elevated himself to spreading the word of God beyond the other 2 men. So you can see as to how Niyyah, intention, the thought process can elevate you. You could become the best professional on this planet and say that I'm going to make, $5 million a year. That's your Niyyah. That's your intention. Or you could be the best profession in the world and you could say that I am doing this because as a doctor I want to serve humanity. You'll still make your 5 million. But now you have converted that by your intention into an act which is worthy of emulation. This is how important Niyyah is. So there is a link. If there is no knowledge of what you're going to do, if there is no intention, then there is no action. Niyyah for us, therefore, is a natural need. You want to take a step, you have to make an intention that I want to take a step. And the amount of messages that are being conveyed from your gray matter to your foot can take many, many supercomputers to actually manage, and it still would not be able to do it as efficiently as me moving this finger. Subhanallah, this is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no machine can match. If only we could understand when Mawla Ali says there's a whole universe within you, recognize it. Recognize that universe. So this is who we are. This is our potential. In one of the lectures, we will talk about the value proposition of insan. But Niyyah is a natural need, and our intention is part of our fitrah. Well, now, whether that is good or bad is up to you. These are the choices that you will make. Because it is your niyyah. Using perfume, is it good or bad? Well, it depends on the intention. If you follow the sunnah of the Blessed Prophet and say, I will have perfume when I come for prayers, because it was a sunnah of the Prophet, it pleases me, that's a good act. But if a young man is fancy takes somewhere, and I want to repeat that from this podium, douses himself with the best cologne with the intent of attracting, someone else with maybe some illicit things in mind, that same perfume becomes a bad thing. So it is how that perfume is used. So the Blessed Prophet Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I quote, said, Al-amalu bin niyyah, that the worth of an action is in its intention. The value of work. And these are golden words of the Blessed Prophet in terms of how we make our lives a life of purpose. We talked about change and transformation. I'm going to be going back to this. So the faster you can give me some answers on change and transformation, the better we will all understand. But one of the things that an intention does, if you consciously make that intention, is a change in your behavior. Allow me to elaborate. I have said Salamun Alaikum to my brother here. We do that every day. Subconsciously, unconsciously, habitually. You meet somebody, we say Salamun Alaikum. And you know, I've observed, it's very interesting when you observe different cultures as to how people say Salamun Alaikum, how they pronounce it. Just observe. Different cultures have a different way of saying the exact those two words. There'll be elongated Salamun Alaikum, there may be Salam Alaikum, there might be all kinds of things, but ultimately that salam implies something. If I have consciously said salam upon my brother or my sister. What does it mean? Peace be upon you. If I have said peace be upon you, salamun alaikum to my brother, and intended that salam upon him, can I then make ghibah of him? Can any harm from me come to him because I have said peace be upon you? I would be a hypocrite if I did not mean that salam. This is a conscious effort of transforming my thought into the words that I use so that those words have meaning. Salamun alaikum is not an empty greeting. It is not just another good morning. It is saying, my brother, my sister, I have said peace be upon you. I can assure you now that no harm will come to you from me because I have said peace be upon you. Can you see how a society can transform if we are to imbibe the spirit of what we do? I said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I say this for every work that I begin. I say this when I start my work in the morning. I say this when I eat. Every time we are taught to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Have I internalized the Bismillah? In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the Rahman and the Rahim. If I've begun the name, taken the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, upon taking a course of action in business, for example, can I now cheat in the name of Allah? Because I've invoked His name. I've said Bismillah in the name of Allah. I'm doing this in the name of Allah. Can it actually even enter my mind that I will actually do a sin in the name of Allah? I cannot. And therefore, if I've imbibed the message, my intention to do something will stop me to say, I cannot cheat this person, I cannot hurt this person, I cannot do something wrong because I have begun this task in the name of Allah. This is my maker. Mu'mineen, this is a thought process that needs to go into us. When we have said, Allahu Akbar, God is greater. When you say God is greater, can there be any other authority, any other power that is going to take over the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about my obedience to Him in order to try and please people? Am I now going to succumb to my boss when he's asking me to do something that I should not be doing, or my family connections, or the public opinion. Log ko shun kaise? Log kya kahenge? The public opinion. When I have said Allahu Akbar, it imbibes a spirit of Tawheed in me, that I will accept no other authority except for the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, my behavior will change. Let us go through life talking about this, thinking about this, that there is a conscious decision, my brothers and sisters in Iman. In the rat race that we run, the responsibilities that we have, all these things, we're going through lots of stresses, unbelievable number of issues that come up, but we cannot lose sight of intentional living as we understand it. We have said Qurbatan ilallah. In Niyyah, for the prayers, for anything, we say to seek nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where the same thing applies. I don't need to labor on the point. I think I've made my point. When I'm seeking the karb of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when I'm seeking nearness to Him, then I cannot be where I tend to drift away from Him, away from His wishes. And this is how behavior changes, and this is how transformation takes place. So, we looked at the idea of Niyyah as to how Niyyah elevates. And Niyyah has got different grades. There are actions which may be high, which may be low. It's all to do with what my thought process is. One of them is Riyah. Even ibadat becomes counterproductive when I'm doing it not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My intention is to actually ensure that I get enough respect in society, so my sujood and my ruku and my utterances become longer and longer. I behave in a certain way, saying that I am going to build a credible name for myself in society. If it is being done for anything other than Allah, if it is being done for anything other than the qurba of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this riyah is a latent shirk. There are many kinds of shirk. And I'm sure people have talked about the levels of shirk in the past lectures. Riyah is a form of shirk. It's a latent shirk. And the Blessed Prophet said, you cannot even perceive it. It's like a black ant walking on a black stone on a dark night. You cannot see it. It is so hidden. Fazl bin Rabi in Baghdad, he existed at the time of Bahlul. He built a mosque. He built a mosque and put his name on it. That this mosque was built by Fazl bin Rabi. So Bahlul asked him to say, why did you put your name? He said, so that people know that I built this mosque. So he said, then you did it for the people. You're not going to get any reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because the people know and they have praised you. You've got your reward here. You're not going to get anything out there. Fazl understands what Bahlul was telling him and removes a name in the understanding that this becomes part of riyah. Intention and how we think becomes so very important. An Abid was praying in the mosque and he sees someone who doesn't normally come to the mosque. He sees him coming. And this man was known to be a fasik, na'uz billah, that he would not adhere to any of the rules of Shara. And that day he comes to the mosque. There is a hikayat, there is a moral story that when they both leave, the Abid had become the fasik and the fasik had become the Abid. How did that happen? There was no magic. It was the thought process. Allow me to elaborate. The Abid, seeing this man in the mosque, says, aha, he's come, he must want something from God. He's showing up in the mosque today, he has never been here. Look at me, I come here every day, every time I'm here praying. This Fasik has come here, he must want something. He's thinking. And the Fasik looks at the Abid, the pious man that he was, and admires him and says, I wish I could be like him. Ya Allah, make me like him. I truly repent what I have been doing. Make me like him. Allah grants him his wish. The Abid, because he became judgmental, he did not leave the judgment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said that the Abid became the Fasik and the Fasik becomes the Abid. It is a transformation that we have in terms of how we think. So we have been told, and in the interest of time, I'll skip this. We have been told by the Aimma alayhimus salam about the prayers of the slave, the prayer of the trader, and the prayer of the true believer, where this is the highest level of prayer, that you do not do it for the fear of hell, that you do not do it for the desire for Jannah, you do it because worshipping actually elevates me. When we praise Allah, or for that matter, when we praise the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, Maulana Rum says something beautiful. He said, by you praising the sun, for example, you're not going to increase 1 iota the radiance of the sun. All you are saying is, I can see, my eyes are good, I can appreciate the sun. I'm actually praising myself. When we praise the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we do not increase their respect and their dignity and their stature 1 iota. All we are saying is that we elevate ourselves to the level that we are the followers of people like this, and this is something that elevates us, not them. This is how we think. We need to think on that basis, that worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, following the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, is something that elevates me, and that is a thought process that I need to have. So we come to the power of intentional living. Life, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years plus. May Allah, give us long and a healthy life. Because you know what they say, that it's not the years in your life that matters, it's the life in your ear that really matters. So may Allah give us, as a nutritionist, I understand this quite well to say that quality of life is so very important. What we do with our bodies. This is the only body that we've got. So it's 80, 90, 100. Whatever the age may be, the sum total of the consequences of our choices is what our life will be. The more conscious we are of our choices, the greater the potential of being able to decide something wisely, and a greater possibility of not regretting our past actions. Is there anyone here who can say that I would have lived my life exactly the way that I've lived it? Is there any brave soul who will tell me that? The conscious choices that we make are those where we will not, or there is a greater possibility of not regretting. And this is where intentional living comes in. Because choices shape destiny. And I love this quote from someone else that I have borrowed. And they said, watch your attitude because they sway your thoughts. Watch your thoughts because they influence your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they will establish your character. It all begins with the attitude, it goes down to destiny. This is a continuum of the choices that we make, and finally, watch your character, it determines your destiny. Very powerful when you think about it in terms of how intentionally we want to live. So, making good choices requires what? Moral maturity. What is moral maturity? To distinguish something from wrong and right, and also the ability to choose what is right. This is moral maturity, and for that moral maturity to be achieved, we need critical thinking. Because you need to evaluate situations to know what is good or bad, what is right or wrong. And you also have to anticipate the consequences of what is right and what is wrong, and the wrong action that I take. If I can go through this with some clarity of thought, and tomorrow we'll talk more about critical thinking as to how we do this, then we would be in a position to make the right decisions. Because look at these words. Just want you to take a moment and read those words of the Blessed Prophet. He was asked, what is faith? And he did not give a long answer of the entire Tawzi'ul Masail and the rules and regulations which are necessary in order for a society to function. But we describe faith in this way. He said, if doing right pleases you and doing wrong displeases you, then you are truly a believer. So simple yet so profound, because it's all about making the right choices. Nafs al-lawama within me, the self-blaming soul, will teach me. The self-blaming soul will enhance my thinking power, so much so that it is my fitrah. If I do something wrong to someone, I can give 100 excuses as to why I did that, to justify it. But my inner soul will tell me that what you did was not right. You know, our children, small children, sit on the dining table with us, and the family is discussing something which may not be quite correct, which may not be fair. That zamir, that fitrah within that young boy or young girl will rise up to say, Dad, that's not fair. It's the intrinsic thinking of a human being that we are blessed with. But as we grow older, the nafs al-lawama sound becomes lower and lower and lower. You know what is the difference between an ordinary person and a criminal? The nafs al-lawama is now completely silent. There is no regret for a criminal to say what he did. There are degrees. And those who are very conscious of that, their duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have the idea of nafs al-lawama, where they will question themselves. Therefore, the right thing is always the best thing to do. So, I will go over this. I don't want to, belabor. This is the first night. It has been a busy evening for all of you. So, to try and conclude this, that making an informed choice, you have three options. You can either do it through your own free will. You have the intellect. You have been given powers of thinking by Allah, so it's my own free will. Or I may follow a path which somebody else fixes for me. I may be following a guru. I may be following a mentor, whoever. And third is a path that Allah chooses for us. This truly is the degree in terms of how we do it. So if it's my way, so it's my way, His way, or Allah's way. So this is my way is, I decide something on one day, the second day I think maybe, that with my limited knowledge, I didn't make the right decision. So I need somebody to guide me. And Buzair Jumeiri was a great scholar, and he taught us something that I want to leave you with. He was walking on the street and somebody asked a question. An old lady asked a question to Buzair Jumeiri, great scholar. And Buzair said, Mother, I don't know the answer to this question of yours. Our mothers can get really angry when they do. So he said, Buzair, you are being paid so much by the king. He was in the employ of the king as a wise man, a scholar, and you cannot answer the question from an old lady like me. And the answer that Buzair gives was so profound. He said, Mother, the king pays me for what I know. The king pays me for what I know. If the king were to pay me for what I do not know, his entire entire treasure would finish, he would not be able to pay me. The paucity of how much a human being knows, and the knowledge paradox is the more you know, the more you realize how much is there out there that you don't know. So we have a limited capacity. Then following others, other human beings. Well, Imam says, since my mother gave birth to me as a free man, why should I become a slave of anything else whatsoever? Following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that is, I will not go into the example of Hazrat Luqman and his son, maybe some other time, but this is the path of Allah. وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. This is the path that we've been ordained to follow. This is my path, and it is a straight path. So, I began with the ayah and I'll end with that. That the power of intentional living is truly where we go through society, we make those choices. Who do we support? What side, where do we stand? How are we going to act in a situation? And these are the choices that we make, mu'mineen. And this truly is the power of intentional living. In this short presentation, there's so much to think about. Every act that I do needs to have some deliberation behind it in order for us to grow, in order for us to transform. This is Karbala, mu'mineen. This is what Karbala taught us. There were people in Karbala who were there. They could see Jannah and Jahannam. Janab-e-Hur is a classic example. That he finally makes the right decision to walk over. We'll talk about him some other nights. But this was an example of how somebody even was at the verge of committing the biggest sin of his life, was able to come back, and it was the magnanimity of Imam Hussain alayhi salam to say that he was welcome with open arms, to say, "Oh my brother, you have come with forgiveness. We will receive you as our guest." This is the lesson, mu'mineen, that we learn in Karbala. The first night of Muharram, normally we remember the departure of Imam Hussain alayhi salam from Medina. When his life was threatened, and when the things that transpired as they did with Walid, finally Imam decides that this city of the Prophet is no longer for me. He said that he goes to the graveside of the Blessed Prophet. One can only imagine the conversation and the thinking that takes place to say, maybe Imam Hussain al-Islam was remembering those days when he would play on the streets, and he would hold the finger of the Blessed Prophet walking the streets of Medina with his friend Habib ibn Mazahir, for example. Mu'mineen, there are so many reminiscences. When we leave a place that we've lived, when you need to live, you look back, and the circumstances with which Imam was going to leave Medina is heart-rending. And it is said that the time at the graveside of the Blessed Prophet was so long that Imam falls asleep for a while and receives certain messages from the Blessed Prophet. Mu'mineen, he goes also to the graveside of his brother Imam Hassan. And again, perhaps the rumination of Imam alayhi salam to say al-wida to his brother, looking at Medina, looking at the times that had, is only 50 years, after the Prophet had passed away, and look at what Medina turns out to be. And finally, mu'mineen, he goes to the graveside of his mother. It is as if a child is going back, as if a child is going back to seek solace from his mother. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I do not have the eloquence of the words to describe the feelings of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Perhaps the Lady of Light would have said, "Oh my son, you are going to Karbala. You are going to Karbala. I will be with you all the way." And then particularly at the time of Asr Ashur, مومنین انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون. تبرکن دو الفاظ اردو میں. جناب علی آپ کو یاد ہوگا کہ محرم کا چاند، جب محرم کا چاند نکلتا ہے فرش عزا بچھائی جاتی ہے. مومنین ایک سال کے بعد اگر آپ تصور کریں کہ جب محرم کا چاند نکلا ہوگا تو بی بی رباب نے کیا سوچا ہوگا کہ ایک سال پہلے ہی رمضان کا چاند تھا. بی بی زینب نے کیا سوچا ہوگا. مومنین یہ رمضان کا چاند بڑا حسرت والا چاند ہے. وہاں بیبیاں اور بچے کیا سوچ رہے ہوں گے اگلے محرم کی جو رات ہوگی کہ ہم سب تو ساتھ تھے، یہ چاند کیسا نکلا کہ آج ہمارے ساتھ کوئی نہیں. انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون. ماتم حسین.